2 minutes and 40 seconds when I do the ad at the break. We are live streaming now. Greetings, everybody.
Hey, yay!
I'm gonna toss you in the background there, Bago.
Yep, sounds good. See you guys in the back end.
All right.
Bye, Bago. Miss you.
Yeah. And here we go.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, in the bird of prey, an Air Force pilot about to take off for the first time in the McDonnell Douglas company-funded single-seat technology demonstrator. It was my first flight. I knew its performance was very low, and its flying qualities they sucked. There were many constraints. So what was running through my mind?
Oh, and that's how it sounds to be like a terrifying aviation tale beginning. It's how all great aviation tales begin. Home in New Hampshire tonight. Where's my co-host?
I am still in an undisclosed location somewhere around Tampa, Florida, where it's not snowing. And more importantly, it is our pleasure to welcome to So There I Was, Benj. Welcome to Benj.
Thanks.
Indeed. Welcome. So that sounds terrifying, getting started like that. But I'm guessing you didn't get into aviation because it sounded terrifying. What got you interested in starting in the aviation industry?
Well, my dad was an F-100 pilot very, very early in my life. And the sound of jets, the smell of jet fuel just got into my blood, from my birth. And so he was operational in the F-100 at George Air Force Base. And one of his squadron mates was Joe Engel, who was a test pilot eventually, and then an X-15 pilot. And he was the first person to enter the NASA astronaut program already wearing astronaut wings.
Oh.
We followed him through the Apollo program. He was a backup, and then he ended up being a space shuttle test pilot commander for 2 missions. And I got to see him several times during that time frame, and he provided inspiration all the way back to Air Progress, and We Fly the F-104D with Joe Engel back in the mid-'60s, and talked about him flying all the different airplanes as a test pilot, including the X-15. So that planted the seed pretty darn early. My elementary school classmates will say, yeah, you always knew what you wanted to do, and you did it.
Well, there's that. So very excellent. All right.
That's pretty.
And plus 2 jets, the F-100 and the F-104D, both look like they're doing about Mach 1 sitting on the deck.
Yeah,
with the chocks under the wheels. So,
right.
Very cool, inspirational jets. I can see that. So,
Well, I can totally see how you got hooked. Holy shit.
The hook was set, and I've always looked up to the sky whenever jets flew by. I still do.
Right.
As do I.
It's an affliction we're stuck with here.
I know. You can't help it. What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
You either go, I wish I was doing that, or, oh, some poor bastard's got to fly that. So,
Now, Benj, was your dad also a Air Force Academy graduate?
No, he was before that. He's from Montana State, and he graduated from Montana State before the Air Force Academy was open.
I was just thinking about that. Just as words left my mouth, I thought, well, maybe he was before that.
Yep, just a
Okay,
smidgen.
but that was your path.
Yep. And around fourth grade or so, I became aware of the Air Force Academy. And so I said, well, if I'm going to go, then I might as well go to that spot. So I set my sights there and did the things you need to do to go. And it turns out after the Vietnam War that if you didn't go to the Air Force Academy, your chances of going to a pilot training slot were slim and none. Very, very few RTC folks and absolutely no OTS guys ended up going to pilot training.
No kidding.
In the
I was
78.
not aware of that. All right.
And then
Yeah.
over the next 2 or 3 years, that changed completely with the Reagan defense buildup. So that where it had been once 3/4 to 80% of the folks were Zoomies, then it turned out they were just like 25 to 30% because the pipeline got turned on.
Oh, okay. Nice. And you did aeronautical engineering?
I did. As I said, I followed the example of Joe Engel and wanted to be a test pilot. So if I'm going to be a test pilot, I might as well know as much about it as I can. And so I studied aeronautical engineering and specifically flight controls. And so I was pretty well set academic wise to be able to do that.
Okay. What would you do differently if it just based on flight controls, if you were to have to design, or is it just such common sense that that's the way to do it?
Well, the time that I was graduating, that was right when the F-16 and fly-by-wire was just coming out.
Okay.
There had been some, test bed programs before that, but that was the first one that was productionized. And so the airplanes that I initially flew were the, slide rules and pencil protector kind of folks who'd done some great jobs back before they had all the calculating power. And so
Right. Like say the SR-71,
for example.
Yeah.
So I got in pretty early in the F-16 program. The work had been done, but got to participate in some of the development of that later.
Okay. Oh, very cool. All right. So I was thinking actually along the lines of, back when the Wright brothers did it, they did the warped wing technology to manage flight controls. And then obviously ailerons and such came along after. I'm just wondering if there's any ideas out there for different. I guess there has to be in a way, because there's the flying wing.
You got the flying wing, you got all the stuff that Burt Rutan has done, who's obviously come up with a whole bunch of different ways. And I've had the pleasure of playing golf with Burt a couple times, and he's quite the character.
Nice. All right. So then you went down to any funny stories from the academy or anything along there? Any like your first morning awakening?
One of the things that I did get to do that was very providential. I showed up pretty strong in French from 6 years of French in junior high school and high school. So they gave me placement exams as soon as I arrived, and I placed high enough that I didn't have to go to any more French classes. I had fulfilled the foreign language requirement. But there was an exchange program between the Air Force Academy and the French Air Force Academy, and I was interested in doing that. So I pretty much took every French class they offered and graduated with a French minor, and ended up doing that exchange the fall semester of my senior year. So I showed up, and
that's awesome.
French Air Force Academy in Salon-de-Provence, and I was the only American in the brigade or the company, and pretty much lived, ate, breathed, slept, dreamt French the whole time. Interestingly, the only major they offered at the time was aeronautical engineering. So literally the first time I did thermo, the first time I did linear control systems, the first time I did nonlinear control systems, it was all in French. So
God,
it was not at the bonjour, monsieur, je suis Monsieur Benjamin.
Oui, la piscine. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, that's funny. I can't imagine trying to struggle through that in English, but doing it in your second language. Wow. That's impressive.
It was pretty intense, and I was fortunate that I already had the aeronautical engineering background discipline that some of the other exchange guys, there were 7 of us who went, did not have. Some people had management degrees and some people had general studies degrees, that kind of thing. But I was, there were a couple of us, 3 of us, in fact, who were aeronautical engineers. And okay, this is what we're going to do.
Wow. Oh, that's impressive. Oh, man. I'm humbled in your presence now. I can't imagine doing that in a second language, let alone tough doing it in the first. So, all right. Wow, that's cool. So, obviously, later in your career, I'm guessing you attended the Paris Air Show for your company as well, once or twice.
I did attend the Paris Air Show. In fact, I took the Continentals, because it was Continental still, number 2 737-900 to the Paris Air Show in 2001. And we were supposed to bring Gordon Bethune with us. But 2 things happened. Gordon Bethune at the time was the CEO of Continental.
Right.
And 2 things happened. One, there was a tremendous rainstorm in Houston where we were going to pick him up, and the runway was flooded, so we couldn't get into Houston. But the second thing, and more sad about it, was the Concorde crashed, taking off out of Charles de Gaulle, and it was as a result of a Continental DC-10 losing a cowl part on one of the engines and leaving it as FOD on the runway. Right. So there was a warrant out for Gordon Bethune's arrest if he showed up in France.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Want to reconsider that trip.
Yeah.
I was not aware that they were after him for that, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Hey, just as a side note, that 737-900 was that a straight 900?
It was a straight 900 before the 900 ER. So it was a straight 900.
We have 12.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were the number 2 customer. Continental was the number 2 customer. Okay. Alaska Airlines was the number 1. And I got more 37 time in YD 501, which was the very first 737-900. Boeing kept it for a long time. I've got lots of stories on that one. And it just retired last year.
Oh, no kidding. All right. Oh, it'll be fun to get into that there shortly. So, but I guess we should get back to, so you got to out of the academy.
Yep.
And went to Willie to do your training?
I did. I went to Willie for pilot training. Felt very fortunate to get to go there. Interestingly, I was scheduled to start pilot training in January of 79 instead of we showed up in June of 78. So I was going to go be the base basketball officer for 6 months, and showed up to the personnel office, and the sergeant looked across the desk at me and says, "You want to start tomorrow?" Well, yeah.
Well, no, I want to start yesterday, but
exactly. So I got to start 6 months earlier than I expected, and took my bride of, I think it was 27 days at that point, and looked at her and said, "Go find us a house." And she did. And that house was our address for the next 4.5 years.
Nice. Very cool. Where'd you meet her?
At the academy.
Okay.
You stayed in Willie. You stayed there as a FAPE. Yes.
I was there as a FAPE in the Air Force terminology, a Sir Grad in the Navy terminology. At the time, again, the Reagan defense buildup meant that they were going to double, at least, maybe even more, the throughput of pilot trainees. So they needed a lot more instructors to do that.
That makes sense.
And so 1/3 of our pilot training class ended up being FAPEs coming back to Willie.
Oh, wow. Hey, you may have said this, and I'm sorry if I totally space it. What year did you graduate from the academy?
I graduated in 1978.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard. 78. So you got down to Willie, and you probably got winged about 80?
June of 79.
June of 79. Okay.
the year after I started.
Sweet.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty quick.
That's
Yeah, you guys
awesome.
weren't-
Yeah.
You guys weren't messing around. You know, you know, when we went through flight training, it was not unheard of to have a 6-month pool somewhere in between intermediates and advanced jets.
Well,
Sure.
my nephew just went through NFO training, and he was in limbo before it started, and then after he finished, he was in limbo at Jacksonville. He's going to the P8, which is part of my story too. I was privileged enough to go down to Cathedral and wing him, so I did the proper thing and pounded him in, and so it was the right way to do it.
Nice. Okay.
Nice. Nice. I've heard they take a dim view on that these days. I'm like, oh, come on, stop it.
He knew exactly what was supposed to be done, and he made sure I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. I said, it's no problem. You know,
Right.
I didn't push him through his shoulder blades, but
Yeah. It's called getting your blood wings. You know, it's
We
right
we had a
passage.
previous guest who was actually one of the Navy guys I got winged with. He sent me a video repeat of him pounding his son's naval aviator wings onto his son's wing, and you could hear the air come out of the room when he did it.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
in this case, I mean, it was the first time he put on his dress whites. So
Wow.
Right.
Hey. All right. Welcome to the club.
Let's stain those damn things. So, all right. Oh, and then I have noticed that you went on to the T-33 interceptor lead at Tyndall, Brian, to go on to your first gun squadron. How'd that come about?
well, when you go to fighters, the idea was that you'd go and learn how to do BFM and ACM, and depending on what airplane you were going to, drop some bombs and shoot a gun in an airplane that you were already familiar with.
Yeah.
In the F-106, its legacy was it's been part of Air Defense Command, and so they had had T-33s either as trainers in the squadron, or companion airplanes in the squadron, or targets in the squadron. But there was a pretty big T-33 operation at Tyndall that they used to train GCI controllers, and so they'd come up with, well, you do an interceptor lead in with the T-33. Where we're going to do intercepts while the tip tank still had gas in them. And then once they were dry, you had 45 minutes or so where you could introduce BFM and that kind of stuff. That's the good news. The bad news is it was pretty incestuous. It was a lot of people who were on their first assignment in the T-33. There weren't a lot of, shall we say, seasoned fighter pilots leading them, but okay, you got introduced in it. And we didn't wear G suits, because the T-33 the Air Force T-33s didn't have G suits. Okay, but I got to get exposed to the T-33 and doing BFM and terminology. Mostly it was terminology, I'd say, was the big deal. And got to do that for a month. The fascinating thing is when I had shown up to start training, the first question they asked me is, what are you doing here? Your class has been slipped 2 months. Excuse me? Well, it turned out that same personnel office at Willie that had started my pilot training 6 months early had neglected to tell me that the class had been slipped. So I ended up having a one-on-one personal interceptor lead-in course, which was kind of fun.
Nice.
Well, how about that?
It was great.
Well, that's yeah, I bet it was.
Usually they just send you to the Marine Corps or the Navy, just send you to the beach for 2 months. Come back when we're ready for you.
So I came back to Willie, and I'd been in check section before that. So now my check section spot had already been filled by somebody else. So they stuck me down in one of the flights and gave me a student who was on academic, military, and flying probation.
Ooh.
And in 3 weeks, I got him off all three.
All right.
Nice.
We like to hear stories like that.
Absolutely. What was his, just sounds like a communication issue with previous instructors.
Well, that's almost exactly what it was. I remember doing the formation rejoin with him. I mean, I'm in the back seat and he's coming in and he's way too fast. And I know that. And so he comes in and he blows through and he does an overshoot and gets back into position. And he says to me, well, how come you didn't take the airplane, sir? I said, if I take the airplane, you're not going to learn anything.
Right.
Well, all my previous instructors took the airplane from me and would yell at me. I said,
Yeah.
sounds like you self-critique there, buddy.
Right. Funny how you learn some things when you just let them, make the
I
mistake.
know where the boundaries are, and you can screw up all you want within the boundaries.
Yeah,
Right.
Early in
sure.
my career, I had to learn where some of those boundaries were, but I eventually learned. I got a good story on that. I was in check section. And so in check section, you give contact, formation, instrument, navigation checks. For nav checks, I like to go to Miramar. You know, it might be June gloom there, and where you get some real world weather instead of, being at Willie all the time, where your wings pretty much say day VFR only.
Right.
I briefed the student. He showed me his flight planning. We're all set. And so he was pre-flight in the back seat because he's going to be in the back seat for the nav check. And he reported his altimeter said about 1450 feet and field elevation was 1382.
Okay,
So
that's
what the tolerance was. He says 75 feet. Good answer, buddy. Off we go. We start into and taxi out. And so the en route was uneventful. He's, not drifting off altitude or doing anything else silly like you sometimes see. He's under the bag, by the way.
Okay.
And so descended into.
That means he's got was it in this airplane an entire hood that covered the entire cockpit?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So the front seat is in the clear, but the back seat's under the bag.
Yeah.
Sure.
This isn't
They
the
can monitor
T-38.
to see if
The
it's
T-38.
peeking by mirrors. Okay.
Yep.
Sometimes you don't monitor too hard, but okay, whatever. So he descends into Miramar and he's doing the TACAN approach and it goes flawlessly. It's just fine. This is the kind of check ride that you love as a check pilot. Coming around and he's going to do a PAR at Navy Miramar. And as you guys know, Navy PARs are hot mic. And
Yep.
the controller
Precision
doesn't
approach
stop
radar.
or release the transmit button once you start down the glide slope. So the controller kept on calling on course, on glide slope, on course, on glide slope, all the way down final. The student was just doing a great job. In the training command, we flew to published minimums, which at the time at Miramar were 125. Okay.
Yeah, I know where this
So that meant the controller would call at minimums if runway approach lights not in sight, execute missed approach.
Okay.
However, at 100 feet AGL, on course on glide slope, on course on glide slope, on continues. So he didn't say it. So now it's up to the student to figure out we're at decision altitude. And we continued. My hands got closer and closer to the stick and throttles. At 575 feet MSL on his altimeter, the new student announced minimums. His altimeter is 75 feet high.
That's right. So
We were at 25 feet AGL.
Yep.
So he initiated missed approach just like he had in the TACAN, and I put my hands back in my lap.
Okay.
Except the student relaxed the back pressure in response to the acceleration.
Oh.
We touched down 1,000 feet down the runway, about a foot left of center line. He's under the bag. He would have passed the contact check with that touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This approach continued.
Sounds like the controller passed his ride there too. He had you right on the runway.
So we did one more approach, and then we taxied into base ops to get our own orange bang, and do whatever you do in base ops to check the weather and NOTAMs. I asked him if he noticed anything unusual, and he cut to the chase. He said, "Sir, did I bust?" And I said, "Well, if anything, that was a lesson for both of us. First, for me, never, ever, ever to relax, especially if things are going well. And for both of us, recognize what the altimeter tolerance means in the real world." And sadly, that's come to light big time with the DCA crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Horrific. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that was the hardest part of becoming an instructor, was realize that every student, no matter how good they were performing, was going to try and kill you at some point when you least
Yeah.
expected it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it usually was the ones
were
that were.
you know, they let your
Yeah.
guard drop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
those were the ones that,
Absolutely.
without a doubt, were going to kill you. I had a friend who was sadly killed in exactly that circumstance. And again, the most important thing as an instructor is to learn what the boundaries are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When you do have to take it, as opposed to, and still let learning occur. That's
Yep.
Well,
that's a
great
hard.
story.
I think that's the hardest part of becoming an instructor, is learning, and so slowly your boundaries expand to let students learn. So
Yep.
I
It's
have a
really
friend who's
important.
a flight instructor, and he said, I think I should have paid my first 3 students instead of them paying me.
I know how that works. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you think you know something until you have to try to teach somebody else how to do it. Then you're like, oh boy, yeah, I got to get
Right.
this shit together.
Yeah.
So first
then,
operational.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, repeat.
Oh, it's just, yeah. So we were about to say the same thing. First operational tour was in the F-106 at Sawyer.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate. I had a bona fide test pilot who was attached to our flight as a T-38 instructor. And his wife was my first flight commander. So I guess in the Navy, that's my first department head. And I got to fly with both of them quite a bit. And he gave me some wise tips on what, if I wanted to be a test pilot, the things I had to do would, get more airplane experience, different airplanes. So I wanted to go to the F-106 with the thought being that the F-106 is on its way out of the inventory, and I'd convert to a new airplane, nominally the F-15.
Okay.
And so I got chosen to go to an F-106 up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. And coincidentally, that was as close as I ever could be to home, having grown up in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Okay.
It was still a good 6 or 8 hour drive, but up in the UP, back in the land of ice and snow. So it was very, very interesting. I was on a night exercise in January '84. I launched at 2:00 in the morning because that's what you did when you're an interceptor guy. And so we headed for targets that were invading the U.S. from the north. And so ran a couple of intercepts on a B-52 and all its jamming, and then headed to the tanker and top off to be full of gas and go back over to Kappa's Casing Vortac in Canada. I think that's 400 miles north of the border someplace. It's there's no lights down there. Okay. It's nowhere. Okay.
Yeah.
And about that time, the GCI controller says all the targets are gone. Well, great. At least I'm full of gas. So he asked if I wanted to bump heads with the other fighters holding over the next TACAN 200 miles or so to the east. It was a pair of Selfridge F4s, and so it sounded like a great idea. We ran at each other, and it became pretty clear that both of us understood that the idea was you got to keep your burners lit so you could tell which direction the airplane was not going, going the other way. And after a couple of turns, we decided, this is not going to be the smartest thing we've ever done. And so we turned it off and we all bugged out to separate. So at that point, it was time to go home. Remember, it's January. And that was one of the years that Lake Superior was frozen over all the way across.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of froze.
It happens about every 10 years. So I asked to cross the lake at the highest altitude possible because, I'm in a single engine airplane, and if the one and only engine quits, I'd like to glide to someplace dry if I can.
Rather not swim or skate, right?
No. So they said, nope, you got to cross at flight level 230.
Okay, that sounds like harassment.
So I went, I got a lot of gas.
I know
The
what you're
lake frozen
thinking.
over. I can guarantee there's nobody underneath me to complain about noise.
Uh-huh.
So I lit the wick and went across the lake. I think I got to around 720 knots. That altitude, that's 1.6 to 1.7, somewhere in that ballpark. I was going to be
Yeah.
able to zoom a long ways if the engine quit.
Right on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing my best job to be an icebreaker to break the ice as I went across with dragging my sonic boom behind me. Got back to KI, and I only had to do 1 or 2 approaches before I was at landing fuel. Everybody else who hadn't had that particular routing, they had to beat up the pattern for at least another hour before they got down the landing weight. So I was home in bed.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
And,
Oh man.
So how long was the transit at 1.6 Mach back to the base or across the
It
lake?
was about
Was it-
200 miles, and I was going well over, I was going about 12, 13 miles a minute.
So less
Yeah,
than
so
20
you were-
minutes. Well,
Yeah,
under.
you were there pretty damn quick. PDQ.
It was pretty
Oh, that's
quick.
great.
That's
That's
fantastic.
awesome. Now, how many hours did you get in the F-106? To Benj?
I got just under 600 hours in a
Wow,
little over 2 years of flying.
that's a lot. That's actually a lot of fun. That's a lot. Well, how long was the average mission?
It depended on what we were doing, but 1.7 was pretty much a normal mission. It wasn't unusual to go to 2.4, 2.5. And if you hit the tanker, of course, then the
Okay.
clock restarted. And we would do that regularly because there were tankers based at KI Sawyer. We stayed very current. I had another time on it. It was a year later, another winter exercise. I was flying an airplane that I had taken down to Charleston Air Force Base and sat alert with for a week, and then brought it back to KI Sawyer. The airplane, it had a fuel transfer problem. And although there were workarounds, it had been worked on by maintenance and supposedly had been fixed. The exercise was not at night this time. It was in daytime. It was against the Selfridge F4s again, but we fought them over Lake Michigan. And this time it was full up ACM over Lake Michigan. And then we come off and go over central Wisconsin and hit the Milwaukee Air National Guard tankers, and then go over to Lake Michigan for more ACM. Things were going really well from an ACM standpoint, but it looked like the fuel transfer problem had reared its head again. I did the checklist stuff to fix it, and it appeared that I had been successful. So it was time to RTB. We're cruising back to KI Sawyer, and I looked closer at the fuel in each of the tanks. There was the airplane had a fuselage tank with about 1,500 pounds in it, and there was a specific time the first 500 pounds or so were supposed to feed, and then there's another time in the last 1,000 pounds or so was going to feed. Okay, it was actually a really complex fuel system. My fuselage tank was transferring way too early for the total that I had. My left wing tank was full, and my right wing tanks were dry.
Ooh. Okay, that
That's
doesn't
not
sound
good.
I think I got trapped fuel on the left wing. And so all the fuel I got is what's left in the fuselage tank, and that's not enough. So meanwhile, as I checked the weather back at the home drome, it was 400 overcast and a half-mile visibility and blowing snow. Great. So KI got lake effect. That was not unusual. Well, I was high enough from an energy standpoint to glide in if I ran out of gas. Doing on the instruments was not in the cards, not the right answer. Meanwhile, I look down, and there's Escanaba Municipal Airport in Escanaba, Michigan. And it's got a 6,500-foot runway that was glaring at me, severe clear.
Guess where I'm going?
And I went, huh. It turns out that back in the day, North Central Airlines had insisted that if you're going to have jet service to your airports, you got to have at least a 6,500 foot runway. And so there's 6,500 foot runways scattered all over Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan.
Nice.
So I'm going to go into Escanaba. Oh, did I mention that Escanaba is uncontrolled? Literally, all you can do is talk to flight service station and say, hey, let Escanaba know I'm coming in there. Because all we had were UHF radios. So I called them up on 255.4 and Green Bay radio, Ravel 2-1. I need taking an F-106 into Escanaba. Can you let them know, please? And obviously that wasn't exactly a direct line, but at least I'd gotten the words on tape. So I'm spiraling down into Escanaba and set up for the perfect simulated flame out pattern just in case the engine quit. You know, hitting high key at about 12,500 feet and low key at 6,500 feet and base key at 3,000 feet. And I'm doing a Stanival perfect 250 knots, which is what you're supposed to do for a flame out engine because it keeps the rat going fast enough to keep hydraulic power.
Okay.
But my engine hasn't quit yet. And if I keep 250 knots, I can get an EQ on my Stanival check ride and run off the end of the runway. Any way you look at that, that's a huge aw shit.
Yeah, that's not
so
good.
I leveled off and said, I guess this is what I get flight pay for, and bent it around in a 360 over Frozen Lake, Michigan, and got it down to a more civilized speed, down to 180 knots, which is about as slow as you ever flew in the F-106 on final, and came over brick 1 with the drag chute coming out already, and touched down on brick 2 and full aero brake and brought her to a stop on the 6,500 foot runway. And as I was rolling to a stop, the fuel low pressure lights were both blinking.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So
no asymmetrical load problem with one wing empty and one wing full.
Well, I'll talk about that. It was dealable. You could deal with it. You know, you had enough control authority to do it. In fact, all the Boeing airplanes do as well. So I was the chief of safety for the squadron. So I got to investigate my own incident. It turns out there was an internal fuel system failure that was not mentioned at all in the Dash 1, even after the airplane had been in service for over 28 years. So the write-up I did end up saving another F-106 pilot who was flying from Griffiths to Tyndall, had the same problem, and diverted into Tallahassee and recognized the same exact trap fuel problem that prior to that point had not been mentioned in the Dash 1.
Wow. Nice. Okay. Well, I will mention that it might
more than those 2 times.
I'm sorry?
Fuck.
Go ahead, Fig. Yeah, he said it happened more than those 2 times, though, right?
It wouldn't be shocking if it had happened more than those 2 times, but you know, if the airplane crashes, then there's no guarantee that they'd be able to find that.
Find that needle in that haystack.
Okay.
So, okay. Interesting that, you know, like you say, though, 28 years in, they're still doing it. I will say at my company, I want to say the last flight manual update for the 727 occurred like 4 months before the last one went to the boneyard. So,
yep.
always improving, always be improving, right? So
yeah. Sometimes it's happy to glad, puppy to small dog, but sometimes it's something that nobody thought about before.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Happy to glad was always one of my favorite ones. Puppy to small dog. Love it. But true. Absolutely true. And some are, when you see those, it's just annoying. It's like really someone's just trying to justify their existence. But yeah, obviously that one, but poor, some strong impressions on safety going forward, even down to the last flight of the airplane. So
yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, after that, you went on to the Viper.
Yeah, the squadron shut down. I was the last pilot to leave the squadron. The squadron commander had asked me to stay as the safety dude to make sure we didn't do anything silly. And so I ended up going to F-16 training at MacDill. And at the time, our friends in Cuba were being uppity, and so they were changing the RAG unit at Homestead that had been a RAG in F-4s, or Air Force Terminal, RTU and F-4s. They changed it to an operational wing for F-16. So I was initial cadre there in the F-16. And I went down there and flew the F-16A, AB, and did that for 3.5 years. I had, it was an interesting time. It was very much the time of Miami Vice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just the show, but the life.
Yeah.
That was
so
early
early 80s in Miami.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was in the temporary lodging quarters when the Challenger blew up.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember very well how cold it was, even in Miami. And it had been obviously even colder further north in Florida. And moved in, and I was there for 3.5 years until I went to test pilot school. But did a bunch of interesting things at Homestead. Very early in my career, obviously I was very comfortable doing air-to-air due to my time in the F-106, because that's all we did. So I was getting there in the air-to-ground world. It helps that the ground never moves, but
yeah, that's a fact.
Yep. So my instructor had explained to me, you're just BFMing the ground and the ground never moves. Okay. Yeah. I can name that tune in one note. So we deployed to quick thrust to Savannah in Georgia for the new squadron's first deployment. And I was paired with our weapons officer for an escort mission. We were defending C-141s from Charleston that were flying a low level over the Okefenokee Swamp to a drop zone. And it was against Red Airs that was going to be provided by Jacksonville Air National Guard F-106s. So we launched out of Savannah and rendezvoused with these 141s that were flying at 500 feet and 250 knots. Oh my God, is that slow?
Oh boy.
So we stood by for the Red Air attacks. The good news is the weather was clear, and between our modern, at the time, pulse Doppler radars and good lookout, we had no problem seeing the F-106s converting coming in. So we defended those transports from multiple attacks in a continuous hour-long engagement that it never went above 500 feet.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's low.
It was, well, it never went above 5,000 feet. The 141s were at 500 feet.
Sure.
Okay.
Of course, we had specific rules on low altitude engagements, but the way it worked out is one engagement rolled into another and then another. It was impossible to tell where one stopped and the next one began. It was more fun than should be allowed.
Right. Just one continuous furball. Nice.
It was pretty much one continuous furball all around the 250 knot C-141s. They thought it was great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So after we landed, my flight lead asked for my video cassette. I handed it to him and watched him put it in an outdoor trash can. Our debrief was over beers. That VTR tape was never seen again.
Huh. It's what's weird. How
That's fantastic. I was thinking you were going to say, "Oh, I forgot to hit record," but okay, yeah.
What videotape?
what videotape?
Videotape? Oh, we have videotapes? I had no idea. Holy smokes! Oh, yeah. Now, backing up ever so briefly to the F-106, you had another jet with a true Delta wing, and looking at that thing, that wing looks to be about as thick as maybe the blade on a butter knife, or was that a wet wing? Did it have fuel
in each wing? So it was actually
really
relatively thick.
Really? Okay. Well, it's just the optical delusion then, I guess, looking at the photos of
it's
it.
a
I've never
big
been up
plane,
close to a
though. I mean,
106.
That
is a big
is
airplane.
big.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big airplane. It's 75 feet long and
Yeah.
Yeah.
around
Wow.
40,000 pounds.
Okay.
It's the
Yep.
first airplane I went Mach 2 in, and
Yep.
it was a moving machine.
Yeah,
And
I
how-
get that. That wing looks like a knife. It really does. I mean, that's incredible. So,
Well, how did that airplane handle the Benj? I mean, how did it did it have a good roll rate? What was the nose? Did it have a good pitch rate?
Interestingly, what we'd say is he was good for one turn, and then wherever you had finished the turn, that's where you were going to stay.
sounds like a Harrier, Fig.
Yeah, so it was good for one good bat turn, and
Yeah.
got actually extremely comfortable flying at low speed, which was a lot of fun, but tactically irrelevant. But
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to fight at low speed and rolling scissors and things like that. And in my checkout in the F-16, my instructor pilot, who would just come from the F-16 weapons school as an instructor, he was surprised how comfortable I was at double-digit airspeeds.
Oh,
It was okay. What's the problem?
sure.
Well,
I was
like
in
you
my
said,
element at that point.
Tactically not sound, but boy, it's a lot of fun.
It's more fun than should be allowed, and it's not much work either.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're not.
They call it old guy BFM.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So I'm a little confused from the notes that we got early. Did you go to French test pilot school before you went to U.S. Air Force?
I went to French test pilot school as a exchange student test pilot.
Okay.
The good news is that I was selected in 1988, and the better news was I was already French proficient, so I didn't have to go to the Defense Language Institute to learn French because from my exchange.
Speaking it all your life.
I was already up to speed as I could be from their scoring standpoint. So
Okay.
I got to stay in at Homestead, and to use Navy terminology, I got to be a department head, flight commander in Air Force terminology. And that actually changed my life because for the first time, it was my job to lead a dozen or so college graduates flying the F-16 to get ready to go to war. And I loved that job. And what's more, I actually loved taking care of people and writing their fit reps and that kind of thing. And it was all part of the deal. And it turned out I was apparently pretty good at it. I wasn't fighting it, kicking and screaming. And so, whereas before I thought I was just going to be a pilot and, had no interest in being in management, being in command, this turned out to be something that worked out really well.
Nice. So were these guys, were they right out of the rag, or were
Some
you
were right
teaching?
out of the rag. And that was, you're molding, lieutenants. And then some had been, a tour or two. And so you were using them as your instructors and growing them up. There was one guy who, his reputation prior to me becoming his boss was, he'd show up for his flight, do his flight, and then go home to mama, and wasn't hanging around the squadron. So the day I became his flight commander, I called him up at home and said, "Where are you, bud?" And he said, "Well, I'm at home. There's nothing else for me to do." So I went home. I said, "Well, you might want to start planning for your flight lead upgrade. It's tomorrow." And his comment was, "I guess the only thing it needed for him to progress was for him to change flight commanders." And he ended up being wing top gun. So
Oh, shit hot.
I was real proud of him.
Nice. Well, it sounded like he had it all in one bag, but
it was
sometimes those were the problem children, the ones that.
It wasn't because I was gifted at it. It was because I just literally discovered that I enjoyed it, and I didn't think I would. Prior to that point, I thought it was something I was going to just endure, and I found it to be very, very satisfying.
So were you a major at this point or
I
lieutenant
pinned
colonel?
on major just prior to leaving Homestead.
Okay. Okay.
And
So you were a real senior captain with all this going on then.
I'd been a pretty senior captain while this was going on, and
Okay.
pinned on major on another deployment. Let's just say my boys took care of me, and I'll leave it at that. And
There you go.
yeah. And
Well, right on. All
So
right.
so the Benj, you went to test pilot school after your tour in that in the F-16 at Homestead.
Correct.
Is that right? So what was that process like getting applying? I mean, was it your first time did you get
it was my 5th time.
aha.
Right. Yeah, I applied in '84,
Okay.
and the requirement was for you to be 1 year as an aircraft commander in something other than a trainer or a utility airplane. So I had actually, the day of the board in '84 was my 1 year anniversary from flying the F-106 A for the first time. So
Okay.
I had met the technical requirement, but they said, nah, you don't really have that. And then in '85, our squadron was shutting down, and I had just gotten the F-16 assignment. And I was hearing humming in the background that they were making noise about sending me to test pilot school. And so I fed back to my leadership, please, please, please don't make me choose between an F-16 and test pilot school, because I'm sure I'll make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And so the problem went away. I didn't show up. But then because I stayed so long that year, I didn't get into the F-16 until late in '85 and applied for the '86 board just after I'd come out of the F-16 RTU. And
Okay.
so I hadn't been released because I was too new in the airplane. They wanted Tactical Air Command wanted to get some payback for me going to the F-16. Well, that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah.
And so I applied the next year and didn't hear a thing. So I was going
Not even the courtesy of a piss off.
yeah, what's the deal? I went cross country, and we're going to go from Homestead out to Edwards to interview with the test pilot school commandant. And on our way, we stopped in at Carswell at Fort Worth, and my wingman's airplane broke. So that meant, I couldn't go on by myself. I had to stay with my wingman. So ended up calling the commandant there at test pilot school, and he pulled out my file. And he said, well, wait a minute. You were selected for test pilot school. Excuse me. No one told me.
So what?
So this is in '86. And it says, yeah, you were selected, but once again, Tactical Air Command decided not to release you. Well, great. You should be in good stead for the next board. Well, the next board was '87. And so it turned out that there were 3 folks, coming from the fighter world. 2 of them weapons schoolers, 3 of them weapons schoolers, 1 in the F-111 and 2 in the F-16. One of them was my pilot training classmate. Another one was my Air Force Academy classmate, and one of the guys who gone to the French exchange that had graduated #1 from the academy. And another guy was the guy who'd been my instructor teaching me how to drop bombs. So pretty competitive guy. And I didn't get alternated or anything like that. So I was down to the last shot in '88 because you had to attend by the time you were in the Air Force for 10 years.
By the time you had hit the 10-year mark?
I hit the 10-year mark at 10 years. And so applied in '88 and turned out I got picked up, and I got picked up to go to France. But the fine print was that they had a year after I got picked up for me to go to language school that I ended up not needing. So I actually ended up going to test pilot school at the 11-year point, which is unusual. It was unusually late. And so I was unusually senior.
Okay. And the test pilots, the French test pilots school part how did that tie in? Was that part of it, or was that just a bonus because it was timing?
There's exchange programs with the Empire Test Pilot School in the UK, and with Navy Test Pilot School at Pax River, and at French Test Pilot School. At the time, they sent people to Test Pilot School about every 3 years. They sent someone in every class at Empire Test Pilot School and someone in every class at Navy Test Pilot School. And there were 2 classes a year at Navy Test Pilot School, just like at Air Force. Similarly, there were Air Force or Navy or RAF or foreign people at Air Force Test Pilot School. It's a well-established exchange program.
And so was it your entire academic test pilot school in France, or did you do a partial?
It was all in France. It was all in France, in French.
Okay.
Good thing you knew how to parlay.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is I knew how to talk. The bad news is the vocabulary that came back after about 2 weeks was the vocabulary of a 21-year-old French Air Force Academy cadet.
Oh,
let's just say there were words I knew I wasn't supposed to use.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, give us an example.
I wouldn't know what he's saying because I don't speak French.
Yeah.
I was counseled by my French peers. You might want to not want to talk that way. You fit in real well with the dock workers in Marseille, but that's not how a French Air Force officer talks.
Gotcha.
Well,
okay. So you're using the first person singular as opposed to the first person or second person singular instead of second person plural, little informal.
Let's just say that there are what we call false friends, words that sound like they mean the same. And well, if you use them in the wrong way, they mean something entirely different.
Interesting.
You can, my wife stubbed her toe on that one big time. So it was.
Well, that's pretty cool. Now,
one way of saying it, you can say to your grandmother. The other way of saying that you can't say at all.
Yeah. You, is that an unaccompanied, was that an unaccompanied tour?
No, it was not.
Family?
My wife,
very cool.
My children were there.
Right.
My wife, once again, saved the day. You know, remember this, find us a house at Willie. Well, she found us a house and registered the kids for school and got the firewood delivered and got the fuel oil delivered and turned the electricity on and got the phone. So fortunately, she had a French background from high school and college too, but she'll say she was never taught any of how to rent a house and, you know, order firewood in her French classes. You know, she can talk philosophy and existentialism, but not actually how do you live.
Okay. Well, it was feet right in the fire then.
And she jumped in with both feet.
All right.
Wow.
So what was the biggest takeaway for you from, well, maybe that's too general of a question. So test pilot school, we've had a couple of different test pilots on. So you had a fighter background. Did you go into a heavy type big airplane flying testing since you had a fighter background? Because it seems like everybody that had a heavy background, they put them in a fighter to broaden their horizon on.
The way that the curriculum is set up in France is you actually transfer to a fifth service. It's the DGA, which is it's an acquisition service. So you're on loan from, if you're a Frenchie, you're on loan from your host command to this new service. And your job is to certify whatever the French government needs certified during your time with them. So if you're a fighter guy, you can end up certifying a new Airbus product. You could certify a new glider. You could certify a new fighter. All of those are possible. And of my classmates, they went on to do all of these different things. It's not quite like the Italians where you have fighter pilots who end up doing test pilot work in helicopters, but that's pretty normal for them. But for the French guys, that was a normal thing. So as a result, their curriculum is is broader in general than the Air Force Test Pilot School or the Navy Test Pilot School's curriculum.
Okay.
So the 5 core airplanes of the syllabus when I was going through were the Alpha Jet, which is kind of their equivalent of the T-38, the Falcon 20,
There it is.
which is what Fred Smith used to launch FedEx,
Right.
okay, a small biz jet. The Nord 262, which there you got it. And that was,
There you go. You're amazing. For those watching on YouTube, or for those listening, the ones watching on YouTube or watching Bago put these up almost as he's saying the name of the airplane.
it's pretty impressive. The Cap 10, which is a aerobatic trainer.
There it is.
And finally, the Mirage 3B. That's the Mirage 3 there, and the 2-seater is the 3B. Those were the core airplanes of the syllabus. We were checked out in each of those airplanes, 2 flights dual in each, and then you were cleared solo.
Holy smokes.
I'd fly the Nord 262 or the Falcon 20 as the only pilot on the airplane with 3 or 4 flights total in the airplane.
Wow. Amazing. So, hey, here's the more amazing thing to me is that we've been going at this over an hour now. It seems like 10 minutes in, and here we are. So, I'm going to butcher some of these, I know, but the airplanes you've listed that you've flown are the Alpha Jet, the Nord 262, the Falcon 20, the Cap 10, the Mirage 3B, the Mirage 2000B, the Mirage F1B and C, C-160, A320, CL-215. Is that a Dornier 228?
Yeah, Dornier 228.
Yeah, Microjet 200B, Epsilon, Cessna 411, yada yada. Wow. I don't even think I've seen that many different airplanes, let alone got my hands on the controls in one. That's pretty cool. I want to talk more about those in just a minute. I do want to take just a moment, though, to thank Derek Combs over at DCArtworks.net. So there I was, thinking I was done decorating my space. Turns out I was just under-equipped, because once you see what DCArtworks.net can do, blank walls start to feel like a personal failure. Our newest sponsor is American-made, veteran-owned, and run by Derek, who builds metal art the way aircraft parts should be built. Start with precision, finish with craftsmanship, and don't cut corners you can't see. Every piece begins as a CNC-cut hardened steel, and that means laser-precise shapes, clean lines, and zero guesswork. Then Derek or his team hand-finish every piece, which is why no two are ever identical. This is not mass production. This is controlled excellence. And if you're wondering how custom they really are, here's the number, 95%. 95% of what DC Artworks produces is built specifically for someone who said, here's my idea. The design library on DCArtworks.net updates constantly, but think of it as an inspiration, not a limitation. Squadron logos, call signs, aviation themes, business branding, one-off gifts, or statement pieces big enough to dominate a room. Derek can scale it from personal to commercial without blinking. I've got a set of naval aviator wings almost 2 feet wide, and they are flat out gorgeous. People don't just notice them, they react. That's the difference between decoration and presence. DC Artworks also does powder coating and multi-material engraving, so you get depth, contrast, and finishes that actually look better in person. He's a military GPC vendor, offers bulk and repeat discounts, and is consistently one of the best priced options for this level of work. And because you're a So There I Was listener, there's a permanent perk for you. Go to DCArtworks.net, use code STIW, and get 20% off every order forever, even if another discount is already applied. So here's the play. Go to dcartworks.net now, scroll, imagine, and then contact Derek and commission something that is actually worthy of your wall space. Because once you picture it hanging there on your wall, you're already committed. And thanks to dcartworks.net for sponsoring this episode. Very much, Derek. And good. Everybody did unmute. Sometimes our recording system doesn't unmute for us automatically, but it did. So that's good. So listed off a bunch of airplanes in the beginning, and that doesn't even cover all of the airplanes you've flown, not even close. So I want to ask this question now and then get back into some more of it. But which airplane, and I'm going to break it down into big and little. Which big airplane was your favorite to fly? Which little airplane was your favorite to fly? And then let's go one step further. Which of those was your least favorite?
So the big airplanes, I spent the most time in the 37.
Okay.
I was when I was at Boeing, I was a 37 senior project pilot and did a whole bunch of different permutations of it. Ended up being pretty much Mr. Lumps and Bumps. My first flight at Boeing was in the avionics flying lab, which was an old 737-200 that Boeing had strapped a thimble nose on the front of it and a diesel generator for an APU in the basement, and used it to develop the avionics for Boeing's proposal for the X-32. So I was flying that literally on the first day I was at Boeing.
Okay.
So
Diesel
but I flew
basement.
so I flew a 200, 300, 400, never flew a 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 900 ER, 800 short field performance, wedge tail, P8s, and then 37 Max 8 and Max 9. The Max 7 was after my time, and the Max 10 was after my time.
Okay. And so the 7.3 airframe is your favorite of the big?
Every time you get in a 777, without exception, the feeling that you have, I wish they would, and you look, and they did. They did what you were subconsciously wishing they would.
Yeah.
So that's the good news about the 777.
Yeah.
During the time that I was at Boeing, however, it seemed like it had not been really updated from a
Interesting.
Flight deck standpoint since the original 777-200. It was the same displays. It was the same feedback. It was all substantial, but it felt like a really, really well engineered 57 Chevy at some point.
Okay.
You were comfortable with it, you understood it, and everything like that. But
Sure.
in the meantime, we put a HUD on the 37, we put GLS on the 37. We did R&P to a tenth of a nautical mile on the 37.
Yeah.
We experimented with enhanced vision systems and synthetic vision systems.
Mm-hmm.
We put a vertical situation display in it, and on and on and on. Excuse me, had done a lot of things with the 37, and the 777 had stayed the way it was. That has since been rectified with the 777-9 and the 777-8. There's a lot of improvements that have happened as a result of what happened on the 787.
Gotcha.
787 is a very, very modern, up-to-date flight deck with a lot of capability. Interestingly, the 787 chief pilot previously had been the 737 chief pilot, and he's a dear friend, and he had pushed a lot of those improvements in the 37 and brought them with him to the 87.
Let's bring some of these over. Yeah.
Isn't it though? Hey, wait, isn't it though? I don't know, ironic, or I can't think of the right term, but we've done all these advanced things on the 737, like you said, and we still have that archaic overhead bleed panel that is the bane of every guy that flies in the right seat of that airplane.
But you know what? When they take it to the boneyard,
Yeah.
the switches that were installed in it when it was built,
Yeah.
are the same switches that are still there when it was taken to the boneyard,
Yeah.
because they're reliable. And the 99.9% reliability that you get in the 37 is actually important to an airline flying 1,000, 1,500 flights a day, versus a 98% reliability on Brand X.
As opposed
Better on Brand X, but they're more reliable.
But okay, but it's the automation. The automation. Here's the feedback I get from the guys that come off of the, let's just say the triple, or even the 7.6. You know, those things are. It's one push button does everything, as opposed to moving all those switches around that bleed panel.
Mhm.
And I love it. You know, that's what I know.
There's
But
tactile feedback. You know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
we
There you
still
go.
got guys that screw it up though.
Well, let me make a quick comment then. So I spent 17 years on the MD-11, and prior to that, DC-10, prior to that, Harriers and A-Force. So McDonnell Douglas from 1989 until 2020. So it took the 777 and me about 6 months to become friends. But once we did, like you say, I love that airplane. It just flies as sweet as it can be. And I did have the enhanced vision and the HUD and all those other things that came along with it, which just made it a dream to fly. So it really did improve. And for those who want to see entertainment, go watch how they do the testing on those. Like this gentleman we're talking to did testing on those big airplanes. It'll water your eyes. You know, they did high speed, high weight rejects, setting the wheels on fire and everything else. Terrifying to watch this stuff. You guys actually full on stalls. Oh, gives me the willies just sitting here thinking about that. So, but
doesn't bother the Benj at all. He's sitting there stone faced.
No, yeah, he didn't even raise an eyebrow at anything. That's another what we call a Tuesday at Boeing, I guess.
Yeah.
So, a quick question from one of our listeners, and I want to get back down to more what some of your favorite airplane and least favorite airplanes are. He says, my son has expressed an interest in being a test pilot. What recommendations do you give so that he should go ahead and start as a teenager to pursue being a test pilot?
Well, clearly you want the academic background. You got to have the classic STEM background, the technical, engineering, math kind of thing. That's a specific requirement both for test pilot school itself, and it was a requirement at Boeing that you had to have a technical degree from an accredited university. So engineering, math, computer science works, physics, those kind of things. General studies isn't going to hack it. So that's the education side. You'd like to do well.
You use that every day as a test pilot? You use those skills?
It's not so much that I use it every day. I can't remember the last time I used calculus, although I did use it in test pilot school. But it's the approach that the discipline teaches you that is relevant to being an engineer. As a test pilot, your job is to translate between operators and the engineers. Gotcha. And then to translate from the engineers back to the operators. In other words, I show up in a squadron and talk engineering doublespeak, and I'll be thrown out on my ear. Similarly, if I talk knuckle dragging fighter pilot to a bunch of engineers, they'll all look at me like, huh? So my job is to interpret between the two and help the customer, whether it's a commercial operator or a operational pilot, get what they're trying to do to get their job done.
Gotcha. So it's like without that background, it's like, say, going to French test pilot school without speaking French.
Correct.
That's a good analogy. Repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
Okay. Well, let's get back to
my least favorite airplane.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going.
Let's get a good story with that.
Yeah.
I was in test pilot school, and the the French government and the Spanish government had had a deal. The French wanted to sell Mirage F1s to Spain, and Spain had some Casa 212s, which is a high wing 2-engine turboprop. I'll be surprised if you can find a picture of it, but if you can, great. Think of it as a fixed gear flying boxcar, not the twin boom one, but it's a boxcar, straight wings off it, and 2 turboprop engines. The Shorts 330 is pretty close to it.
Okay.
Pretty close look.
That's like no, hold on. I got to say it. You know how flying a Shorts is like kissing your sister? It may be nice, but you don't want anyone to know you're doing it. So,
yep.
There's the Casa 212 right there.
There's a Casa 212. Nice job. Okay, so what are we going to do with this Casa 212? Says the French government. I know. We'll give it to the test pilot school down there in southern France, and they'll use it as part of their curriculum.
Make them fly it. They'll fly anything.
Yep, that's their job. They'll fly it, then they'll like it. So, so this test pilot school figures out what we're going to do with this airplane. I know. We'll teach stalls in it, and so they decided that one of the things they would do is they'll take it up with an instructor and a student test pilot. That would be me. And we'll go through a stall curriculum to see if this might be suitable for the Epner curriculum. And so we go through stalls and we do.
And Epner is the name of the French test pilot school.
Epner is the French test pilot school. And so we go through the whole certification stall matrix, which involves, the kind of stuff you do at the schoolhouse, where you just kind of tickle and you get stick shaker, and then going beyond that to, you got to have a margin between the full stall and the stick shaker. So you determine where that margin is. And so it's going all the way to full stall, which is nose down pitch, not readily arrestable, or column of full aft momentarily, or deterrent buffet. And deterrent buffet is not really defined other than, are you scared? That would be deterrent. Okay. And amazingly, it's pretty harmonized among the people who do this regularly. And you do that for a 2-engine airplane with both the engines running, and then you do it accelerated, and then you do it accelerated with the engines at approach power, okay, as opposed to idle power. And then you start doing stuff with one engine simulated failed. And so you're trying to determine, am I going to run out of control power first before the airplane stalls? Or, because that would be bad to have you'd be out of control power and the airplane still stalling.
Yeah. I got a question about that in a second. Okay.
Okay. So we've gone through the whole script, and the instructor is demonstrating with the critical engine simulated failed. And the simulated is really important, because what that meant is they put because they couldn't just feather the prop on this because of the kind of engines that it had on it. They had to pull it back to an RPM where it was, the people with the thick eyeglasses said that's 0 thrust. So that's the same as it being failed. Okay. More on that in a minute. And so the instructor is slowing down with the one engine at max continuous and the other one at that simulated failed position. And he's putting in more and more controls, more controls, and, more rudder. And as he slows down, the airplane is getting wallowing around. And just about the time he gets to full controls, the airplane snaps off to the right and it's in a spin.
Oh, shit.
Therein lies my question. Keep going.
And so it's in a spin. By the way, this airplane has never been spun before.
Oh, all right.
Other than that, how are things
I'm
going?
sitting here with my hair on my back of my neck, standing straight up.
How do you like me now? Oh,
yeah. And it's unpressurized. So we were doing this starting at about 9,500 feet. And
there's plenty of margin.
And so we're going through a spin, and the anti-spin advice had been developed in the vertical wind tunnel at Lille, where they literally thrown a model in it, and they'd come up with, throttles idle, and rudder full against, aileron full into, and column forward. Okay.
All right.
And so now we're through about one turn, and so we're about 7,500 feet. And so the instructor, who's a typical little French guy, is got the rudder against and column seemingly forward, ailerons full into. But the flight engineer, who was in charge of the engines for all our previous stalls, he had been in charge of pushing the throttles forward so we wouldn't over torque them. Okay, because that was quite possible to do. And so he had both thrust levers up. Well, a high-wing airplane with both thrust levers up, that means it wants to pitch up, so it stays in the stall.
Yeah.
So the two things you got to do to break a spin are either break the stall or break the yaw rate. And with the throttles up, we weren't going to break the stall. So I'm sitting there, kind of with my hands in my lap, looking down, saying, "This doesn't look good." And so I'm adjust the trims, because that's about all I can think of to do to make sure that they're all centered. And now we're through about 5,500 feet or so, and I'm looking over at Francois doing his thing, and says, he's a little guy. It's possible that he's not getting full deflection.
You might have longer arms.
I might have. I'm a pretty sturdy guy. And so I'm making damn sure that we have full freaking rudder pedal deflection in against the spin, and full deflection into, to make sure that we're all there. And about this time, the flight engineer realizes that, it's time to pull the throttles back. So he does.
Welcome aboard.
Pitches down to about 70 or 80 degrees nose low at about 3,500 feet.
Oh, shit.
And we bottom out between 1,000 and 500 feet.
Oh, my gosh.
Now.
Yeah.
So
that's not my favorite airplane.
Yeah, now I know why. But because I was going to say, and you became, you might say you became test pilots that day.
Yeah,
literally.
Because my initial question,
it had never been spun. It had never been spun.
Yeah,
it just had data for a spin based
that
on
that was my question.
wind.
Big was, how much do you know about this as you're going into it? How obviously you read up on the handling characteristics and all that sort of stuff, but how do you know what it's going to do? How much have you read up on what this airplane will do? And did the manufacturer ever do any of this before you got handed the thing? Of course they did.
The airplane had never been spun, because there's no requirement for spin resistance on commercial certification standards.
Of course not. So, and then
if you were to do that kind of thing on your 777, I wouldn't advise it.
No,
but if you were to do that, you would be a test pilot, because it's not been done before.
Not been done, and even when the just the regular stalls that they do just terrify me. Watching the shit flap around in the breeze out there is horrifying on the videos that the guys in the T-38 took video of. But so here's where my heart skipped a beat and my palms got sweaty, was when you started talking about engine out, simulated engine out and all that sort of thing, and then min control airspeed. And does your stall occur after min control airspeed?
You like to be controllable.
Sorry, before min control airspeed. Now you got a stall and a crap ton of yaw, and you have now set yourself up for a spin and or a flat spin, which
wouldn't be prudent.
Yeah, no. And so you guys are out here spinning this thing. Oh my God.
Did you ever
that's
get
horrifying
again after that day?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever get in the Casa 212 again?
Did I ever get in the cockpit of that airplane again?
Did you fly that airplane again after that day?
No. Yeah. In fact, it was the idea to have it be part of the syllabus was reevaluated.
Everybody get out your red pens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy fook.
Yeah, secret ballot. Secret ballot.
Oh,
All right.
oh, the Benj. That's terrifying. Oh,
Yeah,
my blood
that is
ran cold when you started telling that.
that's a terrifying story.
It really did. That's terrifying. So, wow. All right.
Well,
Okay.
we'll talk about something a little lighter. How did the Mirage fly?
Well, I
Yeah.
flew 3 different variants of the Mirage. I flew the Mirage 3B, which was as far as age of airplane, like going back to the F-106.
Okay.
All right.
I flew the Mirage 2000B, which is very much a contemporary of the F-16. And I flew the Mirage F1CR, which was avionics-wise about like an A7D or E for the Navy brethren. It was that level of avionics. I'll say this about the Mirage 2000B. I'm going up on a flight number 1, and we have a centerline tank, a radar missile on the inboard right pylon, a IR missile on the outboard right pylon, and nothing on the left wing.
What?
Nothing at all. No pylons, no missiles, nothing. And we went up and did tail slides.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
in my time in the F-16, and we had a centerline tank too.
Okay.
In my time in the F-16, that was how to have a departure likely configuration.
Yeah.
And it was a yawner. It was
Really? Wow. Did they fall ass backwards into the design, or was it? Did they think about that? You think when they built it?
The flight control shop at Dassault, they're wizards. They're really that good.
Okay.
The way you saw it in the curriculum at Air Force Test Pilot School, the flight controls curriculum and linear control systems and nonlinear control systems that supported it was a month long. Okay. Very, very intense, because there was a lot of history of it not being done right. In the French Test Pilot School, it was a lecture. Exactly the opposite for engines. For engines at Air Force Test Pilot School, it was a lecture. In French Test Pilot School, it was a month, because they had lots of troubles making the engines do what they needed to do.
Huh. Is that wow? Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Was that a difference in philosophy, or just
It
based?
reflected the problems they had and where they expected people to have a lot of work. Essentially, they trusted that Dassault would do the right thing and make the flight controls work the way they needed to. And I'm still impressed to this day with the Mirage 2000's flight controls, and the Rafale is even better.
Okay.
Wow.
Was the Dassault 2000? Was that fly by wire?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was fly-by-wire and with leading edge devices on a delta wing, which had not been done before, because normally it's mutually exclusive, delta wing and leading edge devices, but they figured out how to make it work.
So that slowed the approach speed way down, probably, huh?
It helped a lot, and it made the airplane a lot more docile.
Okay. Far out.
So one of the fun things I got to do at Epner was a final evaluation of the F1CR. So at the time, the F1CR was pretty brand new, kind of like the F-35C is in the Navy.
Okay.
A relatively new airplane. And so we 2 American pilots, myself and a Navy guy, were selected to evaluate the F1CR for the escort and photo reconnaissance mission. An earlier version of the F1 had been an air-to-air machine in a different command, and there was a 2-seat version of that, but its avionics were completely different. As an example, it didn't have an INS. Whereas the F1CR was pretty state-of-the-art for 1990. It wasn't fly-by-wire, but the avionics were pretty rock solid. I flew 2 flights in the F1B just to get familiar with how the airframe was going to be. with an IP in the back seat, but showed up at Strasbourg, an operational base, to fly the F1CR, which was single seat only. So we flew and did some simulators, but for my first flight, transition flight number 1, I was number 4 in a 4-ship division, flying in a country that I'd never flown in before, Germany, doing a mission I'd never done before, photo reconnaissance, dropping bombs and shooting a 30mm gun at a range I'd never been at before. So what could go wrong,
What?
My question exactly.
We
So
started
what did go
talking
wrong?
about the mission an hour and 40 minutes prior to takeoff.
Oh, well, there's plenty of time.
The formal briefing started 40 minutes prior to takeoff and lasted 20 minutes. I stepped by myself to a hardened aircraft shelter. First time I'd operated out of a hardened aircraft shelter. 20 minutes prior to takeoff. I took the data transfer cartridge, stuck it in the slot in the cockpit, and started aligning the INS, ran around the airplane real quick to pre-flight, looked at my watch. It's time to go. Jumped in the cockpit, strapped in, all the switches outboard, all the switches forward. Let's go, start, taxi, and we took off on time.
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm an American flying out of a French operational unit. Can you imagine a French pilot being number 4 for his first flight in a operational F-35C unit? We're not talking going to the boat, but that's exactly the level it was.
Wow.
So we took off and we flew in a combat box formation. It was second nature, and taking the photos of the planned objectives was actually pretty easy. We checked into the range just like I would have in the lawn dart, and I dropped scoreable bombs. I couldn't hit my ass with the gun. It was a fixed pipper. Came back to base uneventfully and then did the same thing 2 more times. So that was all the fun stuff part of it. And then earn your keep as a test pilot, write the report and do the evaluation. So that was one of the highlights of my flying career, frankly, is being trusted to do that. And it turned out really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of stressed out just listening to that whole setup.
I'm stressed out. You know what stresses me out more though is having to write that report when you're done.
Well,
what am I going to miss?
There's that.
They're gonna look at this and go, did this idiot even fly this thing? Did he turn the engine on, or is he just making shit up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was that like? Let's go there. Obviously, I could be wrong, but my assumption is that when you do test pilot school, the first report you turn in has just got to be a bloodbath.
This was obviously not the first report that I had done during.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
There were earlier reports that very definitely had been a bloodbath.
Okay.
I still have the report to this day, and with the comments from the instructor, who was flying as number 3, by the way, and he was pretty happy with it.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. That's the part that would terrify me. Having to actually, remember and tell what I did. Were you taking notes, or do you do it all from memory? Is that one of your gifts to go, okay, it happened, this happened, that happened, and I can write it down later?
Well, to the extent that you can in a single seat airplane flying as number 4, yes, I took notes, but they were, pretty much chicken scratches.
Yeah.
But you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You remember you remember kind of what that's like.
Oh, I do. I do. And
try to take notes on a kneeboard in the middle of a BFM, after the knock it off, you're frantically trying to steer the flight back into the area while you're jotting notes, and then try to put it all together at the end. I don't know how you did that.
No,
but that's impressive. That's why you're a test pilot. That's pretty damn badass.
Bingo. So it is badass.
Did that transfer to civilian test flying, or was civilian test flying less stressful? Because what you described to me was really stressful.
Yeah.
Yes and no. People ask me a lot, what's the difference between flying little airplanes and big airplanes? And I would say in some ways, he needed better hands to fly the big airplanes because you've only got a 2.5 G limit or 2 Gs with the flaps extended. And sometimes you're supposed to go right up to 2 Gs with the flaps out or 2.5 with the flaps up, and go right to that limit. Not 2.51, but 2.5. And when you're doing that at VMO, I've had flight test engineers say, I want you to go to at VD, which is the dive speed beyond VMO. And I want you to go to 2.5 Gs. And I look them in the eye and say, I want you to talk me through the recovery. I can get there, no problem. But
can I get
what
back?
would you like me to exceed? The G limit or the speed limit? Because both of, the 2.5 is my G limit and VD is my speed limit. And if I'm stuck there, how do I get out of it? Yeah. And they look at you like, that they have no idea what that might be a problem.
Yeah. These are the engineers that don't fly, right? These are the
they're in the back of the airplane with you.
Yeah. Yeah, but they don't. Yep. They've never physically controlled an airplane, right?
Right. And so you got to explain to them, I want you to talk me through the recovery.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. What do you really want here?
Yeah.
You want to go home tonight?
Some margin. I don't care what it is, whether you give me some margin on the speed or you give some margin on the G. I don't care. But you got to give me some margin to work with. Otherwise, you're painting me into a corner.
Yeah.
And it will not turn out well.
And the paint ain't going to dry before we got to go home.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
well, I can see that as a constant challenge when you're dealing with, the engineers that don't fly.
It's actually fun because you got these young guys who are fresh out of college and they're, all speed and no direction. And okay, let me herd you a little bit. And it's really, really fun to get to turn it into teammates that you can count on, because there will become times when you need their expertise. Did I do that the way you wanted it done?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. Because they're just there to collect the data, so to speak.
They're there, and I've never found an engineer yet who didn't want more data.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to look in the eye and say, on short field performance, I got here in particular, doing takeoff performance, and I had to turn to Freddie Krueger, that's no kidding his name, and say, Freddie, that's all there is. There isn't any more performance.
He never could get through security without losing all his knives. But oh man,
I'm looking back.
My heart's beating fast listening to this thing. Well, I got to tell you, man. This is one of the few shows where, this has raised my blood pressure and my heartbeat a little. Going, holy shit! The things you've done in airplanes are truly terrifying. And you're sitting there like, yeah, well, it's another Tuesday, and I get it. That's what you did. But most people never take an airplane to that edge. And when I took Harriers to that edge, I did it knowing full well I had a nice ejection seat and a silk canopy over my head. When I did it in 152s and 172s, I was too stupid to know that I was going to kill myself if I didn't unscrew myself right now. But wow.
Well, I see in the notes here.
Oh,
doing
go ahead.
777-300ER passenger to freighter conversion. And they want to put a cargo door on the front of the airplane.
Oh.
Which is going to disrupt the static ports. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that means they need to get baseline RVSM data so they can compare the delta between the unmodified airplane and the modified airplane to recalibrate the altimeter should it be needed.
Yeah. So real
How do they
quickly
How
for
do
the
they
listeners,
get?
would you tell what
RVSM
RVSM data is in the delta and why that's important?
Yeah, so they want they got to get real precise data for what the static sources show at different airspeeds. I said, okay, we're going to do tower flybys. Okay, what tower flybys are going to do? We're going to do them from flaps 1 maneuvering speed, which is relatively slow, all the way up to VMO. Okay. Where are you going to do these? Well, we'll do them at McDonnell Air Force Base. How low do you want to go? 200 feet would be fine. So I don't know how well you know the Wichita area, but if you're doing approaches to runway 19, you overfly Jabara, where the Dreamlifter inadvertently landed, and then you overfly Beach, and then you overfly it's a little airfield that's not really used anymore called Cessna, and then you're over McDonnell. They're all lined up one after the other. It's part of the reason why that Dreamlifter landed at Jabara.
Okay.
And they want to do this up to 330 knots at 200 feet, like 19 passes with the 777-300ER.
Okay.
So, well, why don't you just do it at O'Hare?
Yeah. Why not?
You know, I mean, sorry guys, this won't work. That place is not a spot where it's appropriate to do that kind of work. 1, 2. I used to teach tower flybys at Edwards. I know exactly how to do them. What are your references?
Yeah.
And finally, just lining up on final at 200 feet. I got an airplane with a 200 plus foot wingspan. If I'm 45 degrees of bank, I'm not too far from dragging the wingtip.
No, you got less than 100 feet.
Yeah.
0.5 is the cosine of
yeah, you remember
the
your
cosine of 30.
You know, this is dumber than dirt.
Yeah.
So let's figure out a spot that isn't, you know, quite like trying to teach student driving on I-405 in Los Angeles at rush hour. Okay. Let's figure something that's a wiser spot. So we ended up going out to Garden City, Kansas, which is west of Wichita quite a bit. There's little to no traffic. And you turn around the stockyard and that, you know, if the smell doesn't tell you where it is, then you'll see, you know, the cows down there. And we lined up and did the approaches, and it ended up being pretty much a non-event. But that's the one and only time that I've gone that fast in a big airplane. And it was because the people who were doing the modification didn't have access to the original RVSM data. So they had to hire a consultant who needed to develop it, essentially. We got the data.
Yeah.
It was 19 passes.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. They always want more data, as you say. So,
yeah.
Our producer Bago is asking about the E7 wedgetail. So you were a project pilot on that as well. Could you tell what that airplane was for and what that was like to fly?
So that was an airplane developed for the Royal Australian Air Force. And, you know, it's got the big surfboard on the roof with a multi-mode electronically scanned antenna underneath. And it's a forest of antennas underneath for radios and communication. And it's essentially the same mission as the E3 AWACS or the E2 Hawkeye.
Okay.
It does the same kind of thing. Both the E2 and the E3 have mechanically scanned antennas, whereas the E7 has an electronically steered antenna. So it can be a lot faster. And it also has a lot faster sweep rate.
Okay.
Okay.
It's essentially,
I was looking at it, like you say, it looks like a surfboard up there instead of a big frisbee.
so when we first started getting briefed by it, the aero engineer said, "You're not going to know it's there." And we looked at him and said, "Right.
Sure, we're not.
I'll have some of that.
Yeah. In your dreams, our buddy."
Yeah.
His name was Rod Hankey, and he was right.
No shit.
Really?
Okay.
It feels like a heavier 737. Heavier, maybe a little draggier, but really, it's a 737. It's a 737-700 start. It's a Boeing business jet, so it's got the aux fuel tanks,
Okay.
and it works great to the point where Australia ordered 6 of them. Korea ordered 4. Turkey ordered 4. The RAF originally ordered 5, and now they're down to 3. NATO was going to get some to replace their airplanes. The U.S. Air Force was going to get some to replace their airplanes. For different reasons, those latest orders have come into question. So we'll see. They're still going to do at least 2 for the U.S. Air Force. I mean, it's been around for over 20 years.
So how do they make it feel like just a slightly heavier airplane? Is it just all computer flight control compensation for?
It's the 737 flight controls, and so the ventral fins help a lot.
Okay.
They give it the directional stability. In fact, in some ways, it has a little bit too much directional stability. Thinking to when you
Crosswind stuffer.
doing rudder trim, it's really sensitive to rudder trim in the first half a unit or so. Like you get more bang for your buck than you're used to on a 37 with just one click of rudder trim. And then once the rudder trim's past about half a unit, it starts, you start getting the barn door effect when you get to 4 and 5 units of rudder trim.
Any change?
Crosswind wise, they took it to Amarillo and landed in Amarillo with 25 plus knot crosswinds, and it was a non-event. So the FAA guy who was flying it, because we don't want to be drinking our own bathwater. We got to the FAA come in because it's fully FAA certified.
Yep.
And he said, if you didn't notice all this stuff behind the door when you got in, you get in the cockpit and you say it's a regular 37.
That's awesome. And does the P8 feel the same? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry, Fig. You had another question before that.
Well, I think it's been answered, but
okay.
Single engine handling with all that extra on the above the fuselage.
You could jump in it tomorrow and you'd be familiar with it in 5 minutes.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's a good question, Bago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, P8 is it's an 800 variant.
Okay.
I got to fly first flight on that and participated in all the early development of it. In parallel, we were doing a direct commercial sale for the P8I for India, and the Navy was going to be satisfied with just dropping Mark 56 torpedoes out of the weapons bay, and that was enough for them to go to IOC. But the Indians had signed a contract that had required harpoons and mines, and
they're getting serious with that thing.
Oh yeah, I mean stuff on the wings. And, so we had to do that for direct commercial sales, which meant we were doing it with the FAA supervising us, and the FAA and dropping stores like that. That normally those two don't go together. Yeah. So I had to go down to the Flight Standards District office and tell them, okay, we're going to take off with stores on the wing from Boeing Field, not exactly a military base, because again, it's direct commercial sales. We couldn't use a military base. And we're going to go out and fly around, and I promise the stores are welded on the airplane. Okay.
We promised not to drop
shit.
Another
guy came back and said, actually, we have analyzed the situation, and if you do an emergency jettison, we might set up a bad problem. So we need to jettison one store. So I taxi back to the FAA Flight Standards District office and say, remember what I said about the stores being welded on the wing? I lied.
Just
We're
kidding.
gonna drop the store and we're going to go drop it in the ocean. Okay. Using the emergency jettison capability. And if it doesn't come off a hung store, which actually is a lot less likely than it is for airplanes using pyro kind of cartridges. It uses high pressure pneumatics. We will take the following routing over the Cascades, uninhabited areas, and land at Moses Lake because we're not bringing a hung store back into Boeing Field. So got to do that, and that's a great picture. I wish the Air Force thought that this was a great thing to do, but it's a great capability. It's got all the bus it needs to all the weapon stations, and it could be a B-8 very easily.
B-8. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
Yeah. It's a great airplane. I mean,
It really is.
that frame.
So
it's the DC-3 of our day, you know?
I think so. Here's something that happened very interesting. The program office said, we need you to do full stalls with it. I said, okay, I know how to do full stalls. Yeah, we want you to hold the column back to the aft stop for 10 seconds. Excuse me?
That's another one of the engineer things.
Yeah, I said, that sounds like a really bad idea. Like, it's a really terrible idea. We will be in deterrent buffet for a long, long time. He says, yeah, we know that's what we want to see. And it turns out that with the P3, because it had the 4 turboprops blown over the wing, there were people who horsed the P3 around pretty much in the buffet and caused buffet fatigue to the horizontal stabilizer.
Oh.
And they wanted the data in the can to find out what the buffet level was for the P8. I said, well, you don't fly the P8 that way. That it's a swept wing airplane. There's no propellers in front of the wing that are going to help your lift out like that. We want the data anyway.
Yeah.
I said, this
go
airplane
get it.
will spin. And they looked at me like, what? I said, yeah, it will spin. There's no reason aerodynamically why it wouldn't. And you are setting it up to do that. Okay.
You still want to go with me?
They really, really, really wanted the data. Okay, fine. We'll do it. But I said, I got to be the one doing it. Because as you can imagine, if we had a problem, then it would not be that the P8 had a problem because of something the Navy has to do. It's all 737s had a problem. And the 14,000 of them that have been built suddenly.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's a problem.
So we went and did it with a lot of buildup, but got to the point where I was holding the column full aft for 10 seconds. And the good news is the airplane just sat there. But you can bet I was looking out at the horizon, seeing for even a hint of the yaw rate developing.
Yeah.
Because I've starred in that movie, as I told before, with the Casa 212, and I didn't need to go there again.
No. I've starred in that movie.
There's a show title right there.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I can. Terrifying, but I can see why you wanted the control to sit there and say, I'm going to do it. So you're doing this
to the Boeing company to do that. And secondly, I had done hundreds, if not thousands of full stalls. And so I was able to determine whether this was different from what had been done before, as opposed to someone that, he's been through the schoolhouse and done the stall training in the schoolhouse, but this is beyond what you do in the schoolhouse.
Sure. Yeah. And what I forgot how I was going to ask my question now.
Well, let me ask a question And then, yeah, this may jar yours loose. Now, this is going to make me sound really unintelligent, which I am. How come they couldn't take the data from the normal buffet when you instead of 10 seconds worth
And
just
extend it.
and just kind of extrapolate it out and go, okay, this is what it should be? Is there a reason that it had to be? I mean, a computer model can't give you accurate data.
I'll say a famous saying from Navy Test Pilot School: all models are bad, some are useful.
All models are bad, some are useful. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Buffett model in particular is one of the hardest to predict, least correlated with reality, especially when it gets to fatigue standpoint.
Okay.
And so they wanted to have the no kidding Buffett. So they had that data in the can as opposed to some extrapolation of much more moderate Buffett.
And are they going back
Yeah.
and doing tear downs on the metal in the back
This
end to see,
particular
or is it
airplane
all-
had strain gauges all over the airplane.
Okay.
So they didn't have to do a tear down. They knew what loads were being imparted upon it because the strain gauges were getting in real time data on what it was doing.
Okay.
So does the severity of the buffet or the onset of the buffet change with the difference in CG, the difference in trim setting before you got into the buffet? I mean, how do you? I'm guessing everything had to be the same every time you did it.
The good news about Buffett is it wasn't that CG dependent. Stall behavior, yes, absolutely, it's CG dependent. We do stalls with a very aft CG, but the Buffett itself, it really didn't matter where the CG was, and so that was actually a risk mitigator for us we're going to get to the Buffett you want, but we aren't going to be as much at risk of being in a stall that we couldn't recover from, or something adverse was going to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
And I thought of my question now. Then
I'm trying to stay out of the weeds here.
The P3, yeah, we're way in the weeds, man, and there's just
I know,
no doubt
right?
about it. This is cool, geeky,
Well,
nerdy
I'm starting to
aviator
geek
shit.
out. I feel bad for some
Yeah.
of our listeners. They're like,
Well,
I
that's
don't even know
true.
what they're talking
Some
about.
of our non-aviator listeners are going to be like, "Wow, Zoom, this is over my head," and that's okay because most of it's over my head too, folks. Trust me. But so where were your throttles set? So you're talking about the P3 doing this, and obviously, they're cranking the turboprops, putting wind over the wing. Are your throttles near idle, departure?
That's
throttle
part of our
setting?
build-up. We started off at idle, and then we ended up finishing up with the throttle at approach power.
Okay.
Because we had, and again, if something bad were to happen now, at least the Boeing company would be able to compare the differences and make sure that we didn't discover something that applied to all the 737s.
Right. Because I guess the best way to say that is that becomes expensive.
That's an understatement.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've got to change every manual.
That's
and then there's lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wow. All right, we went way off the rails. Let's get back on.
Yeah, we did. But man, I had fun with that. Thank you.
I see in the notes that you went back to. Am I reading this right? You were an instructor at the test pilot school at Edwards.
Yes.
And how long did you do that? Was that a 3-year deal?
That was I came back from French test pilot school, and at the time the Air Force test pilot school was doing from a F4 A7 based syllabus to an F15 F16 based syllabus on the fighter side, and from a C141 to a KC135 syllabus on the heavy side. And so that took a lot of time to write the syllabus and make sure that the deltas between the different airplanes were accounted for. As a result, they needed a lot of people, and the decision was that everybody who went to a foreign test pilot school, Empire, French, or Navy, would come back and be on staff at the Air Force Test Pilot School. And ended up doing that for about 18 months, and then went to the F-16 Test Force afterwards.
Was that considered payback? A little payback? Or, for the good deal, getting to go to...
Let me put it this way. I was familiar with being a FATE from being a T-38 instructor, so it was the same kind of deal.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a lot to me, and I'm sure it would melt my brain. And then from there, now you're a test pilot school graduate, a test pilot instructor, and then you did. What'd you say? You went and did operational
testing in the F-16.
And did you stay at Edwards for that, or did
I was at Edwards for that? Yeah.
Did you ever return
the F-16? Tested predominantly avionics, but I did some engine work. I did flight controls work. I did heavyweight ground collision avoidance system stuff. That was very interesting. Taking off with an airplane that was completely full and immediately, left turn, right turn onto the range, with almost full fuel to make sure the GCAS worked when the airplane was full of gas. And I can tell you that first dive of the ground, I'm very used to diving at the ground from my time on the F-16.
Sure.
But you pull back on the pole and it doesn't quite respond as quickly or as sprightly as you're used to.
Man.
Wow.
Okay. So, I'm looking at your flying time and your types of airplanes, and it's just almost easier to say the things you didn't.
I tell you what? List the airplanes you didn't fly.
I have not flown the F-14. I have not flown the A-10.
Okay.
I have not flown the F-117.
Did you fly the Harrier?
I did not fly the Harrier.
Yeah.
I fought against all of those, but I never flew them.
Yeah.
And the only Century series I flew was the 106. I almost got to fly the 104, but it just didn't work out schedule-wise.
Okay. Because, we talked briefly fly-by-wire and mechanical flight controls, for lack of a better word. And a buddy of mine who was a Harrier driver went to test pilot school, and I asked him the similar question, 15, 20 years ago. So what was your favorite airplane? He talked about a few different things. He said, but I always did like going back to the Harrier because it was one of the last mechanical flight control airplanes. And I really enjoyed that feedback, even that was computer generated, right? Your Q fuel and all that was not real. But did you find like the 106 to be more satisfying in that sense, or no?
Hemingway said it best. A man has only one virginity to lose in fighters. And if it's to a beautiful airplane, even better. And I'm paraphrasing.
Right on.
106 was a gorgeous airplane. You were never embarrassed pulling up to the ramp on that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Bago had one other question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, this is Bago. Did you ever fly a helicopter in any of your tests?
I got 17.7 hours in about 4 different helicopters. Most in the H-60, some in the OH-6, a little bit in the Huey, and a little bit in the SA-365 Dauphin at Epner.
Okay.
Did you feel?
I have hovered. I have actually done some test work in helicopters where my job was to fly chase, and the IP's job in the other seat was to keep me out of trouble because I wasn't a natural helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
That's about 17.65 hours too many in helicopters for me, but
listen, man, I got nothing but respect.
Right.
And even more respect because you said you had 17 hours in a helicopter.
Yeah.
No. makes
His
my
other
palms really
question
sweat.
was about the 747 based airborne laser, and I've read a little bit about that. What can you talk about that?
So at the time, it was kind of Star Wars embodied,
Right.
but it was the idea was to shoot down boosting theater size ballistic missiles, things like Scuds and those kind of missiles. And the cool thing was they wanted to do it while it was in the boost phase, which meant the warhead would fall back down on the people who launched it. I thought that was great. But it involved a chemical oxygen iodine laser that was 20,000 pounds of toxic explosive liquid sunshine that I was ferrying around, and
Gosh.
the laser went under my feet. And as the laser, the glass people said, once the laser is generated, it is leaving the airplane. We hope it goes through the correct aperture.
We hope.
Yes.
That's the fun part.
And there were all kinds of safety systems to make sure that was the path that it did.
Sure.
But it was a megawatt class IR laser. And so you couldn't see it with the unaided eye.
Right.
Yeah.
You had to have IR goggles on to be able to see it. And
oh my gosh.
got to take it through the low power system integration passive phase, where we're making all the stuff, the pre-components of it to work, and then the high power system integration passive phase, where we were carrying the laser around but not any chemicals. And then finally, the last station was a high power system integration active, where we literally went offshore and shot down boosting ballistic missiles.
Okay.
So it worked.
My
worked.
understanding of that was that as a laser passes through the atmosphere, it knocking my mic, sorry, starts to lose focus. And so all the mathematicians and engineers came up with a way to use the atmosphere as a lens.
There were
to focus it.
256 motors around the perimeter of the lens that could adjust the lens with a very, very short time frame.
Okay.
Very, 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 very short time.
Milliseconds or less. Yeah.
To focus the laser at the distance that the missile was at. So they adjusted it, taking account of atmospheric turbulence.
Wow.
Bago, take that picture down, man. That's classified shit there, I swear. He's got a picture of it up there with all kinds of equipment.
It was essentially two airplanes, one behind the other.
Yeah.
There was a pressure bulkhead behind where the crew was. The crew was essentially up in first class.
Okay.
And so whether they were upstairs or downstairs, and then there was a bulkhead behind that, and there was a 1 psi minimum pressure differential between the front of the airplane and the back of the airplane to keep all the nasty stuff behind the bulkhead. Obviously, that creates a problem for ground egress, and that was actually one of the things we had to really, really work hard on. Is if we're going to land the airplane with a leak, you don't land at LAX with that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of limits your places to set it down.
It was very, very limited. We had just 3 or 4 places that we didn't even consider.
Yeah.
Needed to be someplace where we could park far away from everybody and preferably downwind.
And run like hell.
You didn't want to break your leg getting off the airplane because all the stuff you'd be lying in it.
Yeah. Oof.
Oh, okay. Oh my God.
And what last question before you go there, Fig? So obviously, all kinds, and as an Air Force officer would have had some anyway, but all kinds of top secret and compartmentalized clearances to work on these programs, even at Boeing.
That went with the game.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, thank you.
All right, we've been at this for 2 hours and in 10 minutes. It's really gone fast.
It seems like 20
but
minutes, man. I'm having a ball. Thank you.
I know. So can we circle back to the Boeing bird of prey and your opener with your so that I was opener? Because I kind of you left me hanging there. Left us all hanging.
So I'm in the bird of prey,
How
an
did
Air
that-
Force
how did
pilot, about to take off. At the time, it was McDonnell Douglas. It became Boeing with the merger in 1997. It was company funded, and I'm an Air Force guy in the company's airplane. So single seat technology demonstrator. It's on my first flight. Its performance was very low, and bluntly, the flying quality sucked. There were a lot of constraints. So what was running through my mind? It was Alan Shepard's test pilot prayer. Please, God, don't let me fuck up.
Yeah.
Said over hot mic to everyone in the control room. They all got a laugh out of it. And that's me in the cockpit.
That's great. Look at that.
And that's in one of Boeing's T-33s.
That's outstanding.
Those are the three of us who flew the bird of prey. Rudy Hogue flew the first flight and flew the first.
Is there pictures of
That's
this?
Rudy right there. Rudy flew Hogue for the first flight, and I think it was the first 6 or 7 flights. And then I flew the 8th. He flew the 9th. I flew the 10th through the mid-20s. And then Joe Felock, I checked him out in the airplane. He flew 9, and then I flew the last flight.
Okay. And it was a
And what
Was
happened?
it
The
test
airplane just
airplane
was, yeah, the concept airplane that went away.
was it
It was a technology demonstrator, and it was wildly successful with the technology that it demonstrated, despite its performance and flying qualities deficiencies. They did not get in the way of it doing its technology demonstration. And
okay?
after the completion of the test program, the airplane was donated to the Air Force, and it's hanging at the National Museum of the Air Force in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
And I'm gonna assume that some of the things that were demonstrated were incorporated into some of the 5th generation airplanes and flying systems that we have
Flying today.
running
The
around.
company
right now.
got a great return on its investment.
Nice.
I'll leave it at that.
There's yet another understatement, I think, Fig.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Benj. Oh, man.
Well, thank you.
America is grateful for your service and your brain power and the ability to contribute so much to aviation that you have that's beyond our ability to even.
Well, as I say, when people say thank you for your service, I say, I volunteered. My wife and family were drafted.
Well,
which is a perfect segue to the fact that we always thank the families, right, Fig?
Yeah. Absolutely.
They put up with a lot.
we're-
We moved 17 times in 22 years.
Yeah.
My kids, they went to many
they
different
miss
schools.
holidays and birthdays and funerals and weddings and all the other things. They sacrifice so much when, like you say, they didn't sign up for it. Well, to some degree, some of them did, knowing, where you were going, but your kids certainly didn't. They had no choice in the matter.
It wasn't a surprise to my wife. She was an Army brat, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Kids got drafted straight into it. No choice in the matter. And that's a big thing. And so we always like to say thank you to the families, for being there for all of yeah. So awesome.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your service. I know it's easy for the words to roll off my lips, but I truly mean it. And I could talk to you for weeks because I find that what you've done is very interesting. I mean, I started to get really geeky, and I'm sorry about that.
I'm
Sorry
very
for our
fortunate
listeners.
that I got to do the only thing I ever wanted to do, and I loved it.
Right.
You know, it's,
Well.
it's sad when you really, really want to do something and get into it and find out, I don't really like this. But in my case, I really did love it. And I got to do it for a full, blessed career. And it's winding down now. It may be done. I may have flown my last flights last year. And I have to, we all have to hang up our cleats at some point. And I'm
We don't know how it's going to end, right? It just does.
It didn't end at a smoking hole.
Right.
It almost ended with the doc saying you're done, but I got it back. And so I'm glad to be able to do it, and glad what I got to do, and proud of the things I got to get done.
Awesome. And your brain power has been amazing. So thank you for that.
Well,
we have a few other thank yous.
I'll say for my Boeing compadres, it's our pleasure developing airplanes that you guys can do your job in and not lose sleep over.
Right.
Well, thank you for that. I do enjoy flying the 737. It's been amazing.
Indeed. And same for me with the triple. Watching the punishment those airplanes can take is amazing.
I know, right?
So, yeah.
Especially after one of my landings.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking about. So,
all right, then. Well, let's wrap this thing up, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's land the airplane. Hey, huge thanks also to Dave Hamilton for the knowledge and support and the study hand that helps to get this show out to you folks every single week. We deeply appreciate Dave's help and support.
Our bandwidth, which is handled by Cashfly, and advertising support comes from Backbeat Media. Both absolutely critical to keeping the lights on.
Right. Hey, and if you enjoy the show, would you do us a favor? Go to sothereiwas.us/rate and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps other people find the show. If you find this show lax and you need to give a 3-star rating, go find another show, give them the 3-star rating, come back, give us 5 stars, and tell us what we need to do and improve. And we're trainable.
We are trainable. Hey, if you got an idea for a guest, a story, or a way to make the show better, email us. Repeat at sothereiwas.us, fig@sothereiwas.us, bago@sothereiwas.us, and sticks@sothereiwas.us.
Absolutely.
We actually read them. So
we do read the emails. We may need to change Bago's call sign to repeat Speedy, because he gets that crap up so fast. It's amazing. Hey, don't forget we've got a merch store. So there was .us/merch. We got koozies, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and soon it'll be bikini season, folks.
It's bikini season down under right now. Right. It's bikini. It's always bikini season in Central America, for crying out loud.
Somewhere.
I got mine on right now under my clothes.
Yeah, right. I knew you would.
Yeah.
Too much information, man.
I'm sorry about that. The Benj. Hey, speaking of sharing, share the show with 2 friends. That doesn't cost you anything. We're everywhere you listen to podcasts, and word of mouth is still king. So share the show. Pretty please.
Indeed. We're grateful to you when you do. And if you feel so inclined, don't tell your financial advisor what you're doing with your money, but to our Patreon supporters and direct donors, thank you. Those words are inadequate, but you're sacrificing your hard-earned money to support this show goes so far. We can't even tell you how much it means to us. Without you, we simply could not keep this show going. And oh, by the way, you can also go to sothereiwas.us/donate. And the very top there now is a Venmo link. And Venmo takes a much smaller cut than Patreon and Donor Box do. So if you feel like giving a donation directly, go to sothereiwas.us/donate, and we'll get more of it from the Venmo donation than anything else. And again, we question your judgment for cracking your wallet, giving away your hard-earned money to a couple knuckleheads like us. But
we severely question your judgment, but we are so humbled and thankful.
Yeah.
Hey, a massive thanks right now to Bago, who's been in the background, throwing up pictures before the last syllable has come out of what we're talking about.
That was amazing.
Yeah, you're a magician, Bago, and Dix is usually here. He's in the emergency room tonight doing his thing. But
Yeah,
thanks,
something
Bago.
about a guy coming in contact with an axe in his hand, and really, how do you hit your own hand with an axe? Just asking for a friend. I don't know.
Right. Maybe he's got long arms
Right? So,
or a short-handled axe.
yeah. Hey, we also need to thank Badass at bdsaviationphotography.com for letting us use his incredible images. He's in the audience tonight. We appreciate your
Thanks, Badass.
being a supporter, being a listener, and contributing your amazing artwork to us, Badass. bdsaviationphotography.com. Thank you.
And of course, the sound we're starting to hear in the background, that's the sound of the two F-16 pilots that made the Air Force sound good. That's the Dos Gringos. They let us use their music for our intro and exfil. And listen, if you're having a bad day, you can't go wrong with one of their songs. The 4 albums, not a bad song on any of them. And they're great Americans. And they got a bourbon company.
Yeah. And you can find them on Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to fine music. And quickly, Bago had it up there briefly. Thank you to Derek Combs over at dcartworks.net for sponsoring this show and committing to sponsor for many shows to come. Trust me, if you want any kind of cool artwork, look at dcartworks.net. This guy is an artiste as well.
Yes, he is. Do it.
Yeah.
You won't be disappointed.
You won't. So what do you say, Fig? Until next time, stay safe and
Check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
oh, hold on. You going down to North Atlantic? It's what?
He said it's over.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
And we're out. All right, there you go, folks. 2 hours, 22 minutes. We're going to go ahead and end the stream here. It's late, and we have overtaxed our guests. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, everyone.
Thanks, Doug.